She mocked me for being poor, called me worthless in front of her friends. But when I revealed who I really was, she was left broken and humiliated. My name is Adrien Lemaire, and I'm 29 years old, son of Louis Lemaire, founder of one of the most luxurious hotel chains across Europe and the US. Everyone expected me to take over the empire after business school, but I had one problem: fake love. You know what they don't teach you at business school? How to tell the difference between love and a transaction. You see, betrayal doesn't always come with a knife in your back. Sometimes, it comes with a kiss on the cheek and a hand in your wallet. Gold diggers don't wear signs. They wear smiles. They say all the right things until you've fallen just deep enough for them to cash out. Every woman I met seemed to want my last name, not my first. They loved my yacht, not my values. My penthouse, not my personality. So I left. No bodyguards. No private jets. Just me and a plan. But not before one last conversation with the man who built the empire. "Adrien, this is foolish," my father said, pacing in his office, the skyline of Paris glittering behind him. "You're the future of Lemaire International, not some backpacking dreamer." "I'm not leaving the company, Papa. I need to know what's real," I said quietly. "I need to know who I am without the name, without the money." He stared at me for a long time. Then, in a voice I rarely heard from him, one not made of steel but of concern, he said, "Real love doesn't hide behind a fake life. Be careful, son. The world outside our gates doesn't play fair." I nodded. Neither does the world inside them. So I disappeared. I headed to a quiet, coastal town called Maple Ridge, checked into a cheap motel, and applied as a waiter at Maddie's Diner. $12 an hour. The uniform smelled like grease. The manager barked orders. And I couldn't remember the last time my hands smelled like dish soap instead of Italian cologne. But that's when I met Sophie Rivers. She wasn't like the rest. She smiled kindly when I spilled a customer's soup. She helped me mop when I was on closing duty. She brought me homemade lemon pie. "Because you looked tired." And slowly, I began to fall. She'd tell me about her dreams, her past, her struggles. I thought, I finally found someone real. So one night, after a late shift, we sat on the curb behind the diner, eating leftover fries from a to-go box. I opened up. Not fully, but enough. I used to have more, I told her. But I wanted to live a simple life. Find someone who'd love me for me. She smiled and whispered, "I think that's beautiful." But I didn't see the flicker in her eyes. I didn't see the way she slipped out the back during breaks to text someone she called just a family friend. I didn't see the way her smile sharpened when the diner got busy and the tips got better. And I definitely didn't see what was coming next. One Friday night, I walked into Maddie's. And I froze. There she was, Sophie, laughing. Not with coworkers. Not with friends. In the arms of a man in a designer suit. The kind who wore his ego louder than his cologne. Chase Armitage, the flashy Maserati-driving founder of Armitage Properties, a real estate firm known more for its scandals than its luxury listings. He stood beside a cherry-red Maserati parked right outside the diner, as if waiting for applause. The kind of man who flaunts his watch before his words. And then, they kissed. Not a subtle kiss. Not one of confusion or second thoughts. A full, public, shameless kiss. I stood there, invisible in my stained apron. Soup splashed on my sleeves. Burn marks on my hands. The same hands that had cleaned up after her shifts. That had carried her pie boxes. That had once brushed a tear from her cheek behind the walk-in fridge. Now they just hung there, useless. When she spotted me, she didn't flinch. Didn't explain. Didn't even pretend to feel guilty. Instead, she adjusted her lipstick with a finger, leaned into his shoulder, and looked me dead in the eyes. She scanned me from head to toe, like I was a forgotten takeout order she wished she hadn't placed. Then, loud enough for every fork to pause mid-bite, for every head to turn, she said, "He's just a broke waiter." A phase. Something I entertained when I was bored. The silence that followed was crushing. The kind of silence that presses against your lungs. She laughed again, louder this time, as if she needed to puncture the silence with cruelty. "I need someone who can actually give me a future," she added with a fake pout. "Not someone who can barely afford the tip." From the corner booth, someone chuckled. The manager didn't even look up. A few regulars exchanged glances, and one muttered, "Ouch." And me? I just stood there. Not in shock. Not even in anger. Just realization. I stared. Not at her, but at the person I thought I knew. and the mask she wore all along. Then I took a step forward. She blinked, suddenly unsure. I placed the tray gently on a nearby table, wiped my hands on my apron, and looked her straight in the eye. So that's what I was to you, I said, calm but cold. A phase. A filler between Maserati rides. Her smile wavered for the first time. Don't make a scene, Adrian. You made it the moment you opened your mouth. I cut in. You played pretend better than I ever could. I told you I gave up everything to find something real. But clearly, you're not it. The man beside her scoffed. Who is this guy? I turned to him and said, someone who already has everything you're trying to impress her with. And more. Sophie's face paled. Wait, what? But I didn't give her the satisfaction of an explanation. I just walked away, past the kitchen, past the customers still gawking, and out into the cool night air, the door slamming shut behind me. And in that moment, I remembered something my father once said. Real love doesn't hide behind a fake life. But fake love? It always hides behind sweet smiles. 3 weeks passed. The simple life faded into the rearview mirror. I returned to the city, back to sharp suits, sleek boardrooms, and the rhythm of a billion-dollar empire. Back to the Lemaire name, the one that could make doors swing open before I even knocked. But I came back different. Sharper. Wiser. I had seen the worst side of human nature, dressed in lip gloss and giggles, hiding greed behind compliments. That weekend, my family was hosting the Lemaire Foundation Gala, an extravagant charity event held at one of our crown jewels, the Silver Crest, a 7-star resort overlooking the coast of Monaco. A glittering glass ceiling, live orchestra, billionaires, royals, media moguls, all under one dome. And that night, I was to be introduced to the world as the new CEO of Lemaire Hotels. The cameras were ready. My speech was prepped. The press had lined up, buzzing with excitement. But fate had a surprise waiting for me. Because as I descended the marble staircase, flanked by security and board members, I saw her. Sophie. She stood near the champagne fountain, dressed in a deep crimson gown, hair curled like she had stepped out of a movie. But her confident posture faltered the second she laid eyes on me. Her wine glass trembled, and in the chaos of the gala lights, she leaned in to whisper to her date, none other than Chase Armitage. That's Adrian, she stammered. The waiter. Chase turned slowly, confusion in his eyes. Me? I didn't even blink. Because tonight, I wasn't carrying trays or wiping booths. I was dressed in a hand-stitched navy tuxedo from Seville Row, wearing a platinum watch worth more than her boyfriend's car. And on my arm was Isla James, poised, elegant, radiant. Isla had always been the one who saw through the noise. We had dated years ago, but life pulled us apart. When I disappeared to find myself, she found me again and never once asked what was in my bank account. Sophie couldn't stop staring. She elbowed Chase. Why is he with the board members? Why is everyone talking to him? Just then, the host's voice echoed across the grand hall. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? It is my honor to introduce the new CEO of Lemaire Hotels, Mr. Adrian Lemaire. The spotlight hit me like thunder. The room fell into stunned silence. I felt Sophie's gaze burning into my back as I walked up the steps to the stage. Her hands clutched her dress like it could anchor her to reality. I looked out across the glittering sea of faces, and then directly at her. 3 months ago, I began, voice calm. I was working as a waiter at a roadside diner. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I went undercover, looking for something money can't buy, truth, kindness, loyalty, love. A murmur rippled through the room. Phones came out. Press leaned forward. Sophie's mouth parted. She took a small step back. Chase, slowly realizing the magnitude of the situation, quietly slid his hand from hers and stepped away, shaking his head. But I wasn't done. I smiled softly and added, and I want to thank one girl in particular for showing me exactly what fake looks like. If it weren't for her, I might still be searching in the wrong places. The crowd gasped. Some clapped nervously. Others turned to look at Sophie, whose eyes welled up in disbelief. I let the silence sit before turning to Isla. And to the woman beside me tonight, you never needed $1 billion name to believe in me. That's why this jet we're flying home in. It's yours. Now the applause thundered. Cameras flashed. Guests rose to their feet. Sophie's face crumbled. After the speech, we stepped down from the stage. Isla whispered, "You sure you're ready for this part?" "I am." As I made my way toward the exit, Sophie rushed across the floor, heels clicking like a warning bell. "Adrian," she called, desperation raw in her voice. I stopped, turned. "Please. I didn't know. I thought. Why didn't you tell me?" I met her eyes. The same eyes that once rolled when I forgot her extra napkins. The same ones that laughed when I dropped a tray of glasses. "Because if I had told you the truth," I said softly, "you would have played your role perfectly. But I needed to see the real you." She reached for my arm. "Adrian, I made a mistake. Please, just give me a chance to explain." But Isla stepped forward, graceful, composed, and stood between us. "No," she said coldly. "He gave you a chance when he had nothing. And you spat on it." Sophie turned scarlet. People were watching now. Whispers circled. I leaned close and whispered so only she could hear. "Next time, treat every person with respect. Because you never know if the waiter serving you owns the building." And I walked away. Hours later, from the window of my private jet, I looked out at the glittering coastline below. Isla leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think she'll be okay?" she asked softly. "She'll survive," I said. "But she'll never forget tonight." I pulled out my phone, opened the charity auction stats, and smiled. We raised $12 million that night, enough to fund education programs for thousands of underprivileged children. And that was the sweetest victory of all. She called me just a waiter. She laughed when I had nothing. Now she watches from the crowd, as I soar into the sky, with the woman who believed in me when no one else did. So to anyone listening who's been betrayed, who's been called not enough, who's been used, doubted, or discarded for what you don't have, you are not your bank balance. You are not your job title. You are not your status. You are your values, your honesty, your heart. And someday, someone will love you for exactly that. Not for the car you drive or the house you live in, but for how you make them feel when the doors are closed and the world isn't watching. Until then, let them laugh. Let them call you broke. Let them chase their next paycheck of a relationship. Because while they're counting what's in someone's wallet, you'll be living a life that's rich in ways they'll never understand. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping drama, betrayal, and sweet revenge stories.